Wow, look at this. Fun, hey? I've got a 3-year-old and keeping him busy is a full-time job. And most importantly, trying to keep him away from technology, cell phones and iPads. In this DIY, we're going to show you how to make an oversized chalkboard just like this, cool, fun and funky, and outside in the open for you guys to have some great fun. I've got a lot of space at home, so I've opted for quite a large, oversized chalkboard. As you can see, I've practically nearly used a whole sheet of plywood here. I've gone for a 2 meter by 1 meter depth. I'm using a 12mm shutter board. The reason why I'm going for the 12mm is that it's a slightly higher grade, which is a much better, smoother surface finish opposed to an 18mm. You can use an 18mm, but it is a rougher finish. That means you're going to do a little bit more sanding to get that smooth surface finish later on. I've made use of the guys at Builders. They've cut it all to size for me. I've also cut some strips off that same sheet to go around the perimeter to act as a frame. I'm going to stain that up, probably going to go with an aqua blue, and we'll stain it up and then we'll seal this timber because it's going to be outside and I don't want any water to penetrate into that plywood and then damaging it. Once the sealer is dry, I'm going to apply the black chalkboard paint. I'm going to put approximately 3 coats on there. We're then going to assemble the blue pieces around the outer edge, pick it up, get it into position, and then let the little guy have some fun. When it comes to the size of the chalkboard that you want to make, you can customize it to your requirements. Just take those measurements down to the guys at Builders and they can cut it all for you. The materials and tools that I'm going to be using, I'm using a 12mm sheet of plywood. I've got some Rust-Oleum wood stain, some wood sealer, some chalkboard paint, a paint tray and roller, a sander with 180 grit pads, a cordless drill, some wood glue, speed pilot to drill my pilot holes and countersink at the same time, screws, a Phillips driver and a pencil. The first thing I'm going to do is sand down my timber pieces with a 180 grit sandpaper to give it a smooth flush finish and remove any sharp edges or splinters. The sanding is complete and that is as smooth as a baby's bottom. Before I seal it, I'm going to stain that outer frame area. And I'm going to be making use of that Rust-Oleum stain. This is an aqua vintage blue, really fantastic stuff. But remember, it gets everywhere. I'm going to apply it with a rag and make sure you wear protective gloves to keep that blue stain off your fingers. Otherwise, you're going to end up looking like a Smurf by the end of the DIY. Let's also move this bottom board out the way to prevent that from getting covered with stain as well. Remember, when you're using this stain, a little bit goes a long way. Just dip in slightly on the rag. Haven't got a lot on there. Straight away, you'll see how much that really stretches. Rub it in, work it all the way into the timber, and that way it also helps it dry quicker if you haven't put too thick a coat on, and it really helps enhance the grain and bring that grain and wood texture out. Helps it pop. When applying wood stain and wood sealer, remember to finish off in the same direction as the grain. That way it'll give a much more natural look. This vintage aqua blue stain really looks fantastic. I love the way it's penetrated into the wood, but still allowed that grain structure to come through. And you see all those different textures. Remember, less is more when applying stain. You can always put on more at a later stage if you want to. Rub it in well, allow it to dry, and then it's time to apply some wood sealer. I'm using a water-based wood sealer, which is still suitable for exterior use. I love this stuff as it's easier to clean, easier to work with the brushes, and it dries quicker. So I can actually get the whole DIY done in one weekend instead of stretching it over several days or several weeks. Make sure you do seal the end grain because that's the easiest place where water can get in and do the most damage. As you can see, the water-based sealer is white initially. As you apply it and as it dries, it does go clear and transparent. I'm sealing the timber with exterior wood sealer before I apply the chalkboard paint. Alternatively, if you have more time on your hands, you can use wood primer, but it does take a lot longer to dry. It's around about 16 hours per coat for wood primer. I want to get this job done on one weekend. Wood sealer is going to work fine. Once that's dry in a few hours, I can apply the chalkboard paint. I'm going for the Fired Earth chalkboard paint. I've chosen black. What's nice about this paint is it's also water-based, easier for washing up brushes, as well as it dries a lot quicker. Around about 6 hours for recoat, so it says on the back of the tin, but if it's a hot warm day, 2 hours is probably more than enough, and you can start putting on your consecutive coats. I'm going to apply my first coat. It's going to need at least 3 coats to hide that grain structure. Don't apply too thick of a coat, rather apply 3 thin coats. That way you'll get better coverage and it will dry much quicker. My 3 coats of chalkboard paint is dry, and it's now time to put on my frame. I really love how this blue pops with the black chalkboard paint. It really does look fantastic. I'm so keen to get these other pieces in just to see what it looks like. Let's put that one over there, line that up, and then the last piece on the top. I love it. I think it looks fantastic. I really love this color. Wow. I now need to secure that to the chalkboard. I'm going to screw it from the underside. That way I can hide the screws out the way, and what I'll do is I'll just put wood glue in between those mating surfaces, clamp it into position, flip it over, and then screw each piece into place. I'm using my speed pilot, which is going to drill the clearance hole and countersink this back edge for me as well. Then I'm going to drive in these 20mm screws. That looks really cool, although scarily, it actually reminds me a little bit of school back in the day, except a lot more color. Before I hand it over to my little gremlin, I think it's time to give it a bit of a test run. Oh, it's like a fighter jet. Well, this DIY definitely seems to be a success. He seems to be happy. I've got him outside and open. I've pried him off away from the cell phones, and he's letting his creative license run wild. If you enjoyed this DIY, like it, share it. You can also subscribe to our Builders Fan YouTube channel, where there's a range of DIYs just like this, as well as product reviews for you to check out.